So you've said before that you think there's a world where Ripple could take over Swift.
Well, I've also said I thought there was ways we could work with Swift.
Let's talk about that.
There is a clip from a panel discussion at the Paris FinTech Forum that is now circulating again in 2026. And the reason it is going viral is not because of what was said, it is because of what has happened since. Ripple's CEO, Brad Garlinghouse, sat across from an interviewer and was asked one of the most loaded questions in fintech. Could Ripple actually replace Swift, the messaging backbone that moves trillions of dollars between banks every single day? His answer was careful, diplomatic, almost cautious. But here in 2026, the infrastructure his company has been quietly building tells a story that is anything but cautious. Today we are breaking down two developments, one from that Paris panel, one from Tokyo, that together show exactly where this is heading. To understand what is happening right now, you need to go back to that Paris FinTech Forum exchange. Because Garlinghouse said something in that room that most people glossed over at the time. He was not positioning Ripple as Swift's enemy. He was positioning Ripple as the solution to a problem that Swift, owned and governed by the very banks it serves, is structurally unable to fix on its own. Think about what he was describing. Settlement times measured in days. Transaction costs running above $15 per payment. A system built for a financial era that no longer exists, trying to compete in a world where PayPal, Amazon, and digital native platforms move money in seconds for fractions of a cent. His argument was straightforward. The banks that own Swift are the same institutions Ripple is trying to help survive in that new environment. The question he was raising, could Ripple and Swift work together, was not naivety. It was strategy. And the fact that it has not played out that way tells you something important about where the power in this transition actually sits. Watch this clip. Pay attention not just to what he says, but to the problem he is describing. Because that problem is exactly what the second development we are covering today has already begun to solve. That conversation...
So you've said before that you think there's a world where Ripple could take over Swift.
Well, I've also said I thought there was ways we could work with Swift.
Let's talk about that.
Well, I'll start that comment just by saying, look, Swift is owned, I think Godfrey, by the way, has a very challenging job. Swift is owned by the banks. It isn't a traditionally kind of construct. You have a very strong chairman in how Citi kind of is an important stakeholder in that. But at the end of the day, Ripple's trying to help financial institutions and banks be successful in the future. How do we enable Santander to compete more effectively with PayPal, with Amazon, Facebook? And it's not going to be in settlement times measured in days. It's not going to be measured, settlement costs measured in $15+. So I want to see, our mission in life really has been, how do we help these financial institutions be successful? Those are the same financial institutions that own Swift. And so in many ways, we've thought, hey, we could work together. That hasn't played out. And I think increasingly, we are seeing more and more banks adopt Ripple's technology. And we're seeing that play out. But I have a ton of respect for what Swift has built, just to be clear.
Godfrey, how to
solve? That conversation happened on a stage in Paris. It was thoughtful, measured, and in many ways unresolved. The clip ends before Garlinghouse finishes his thought. But what did not stay unresolved is the infrastructure. Because while that debate about Swift and Ripple was playing out in conference rooms and on panels, Ripple's partners were not waiting for the conversation to conclude. They were building, and nowhere is that more visible right now than in Tokyo. SBI Ripple Asia is a joint venture between Ripple and SBI Holdings, one of Japan's largest financial groups. It has been operational since 2016. But what they announced from Tokyo recently is a significant step beyond anything they have done before. They have completed development of a token issuance platform built directly on the XRP Ledger. And critically, they have registered as a licensed prepaid payment instrument issuer under Japan's Payment Services Act. That last part is what separates this from every other blockchain announcement you have seen this year. This is not a pilot. It is not a white paper. It is not a partnership agreement waiting on regulatory approval. It is a licensed, regulated, live product operating inside Japan's legal financial framework, built on the XRP Ledger. What that means in practice is this. Businesses in Japan can now issue regulated digital tokens on XRPL, connected via API directly to existing applications and websites. End users hold and transact with digital assets without any visible blockchain interface. The technology is invisible. The compliance is built in. The infrastructure is already running. This is the outcome that Garlinghouse was describing in Paris. Real-world institutional adoption of XRP infrastructure, now licensed and live in one of the world's most regulated financial markets. Watch the announcement. Licensed.
SBI Ripple Asia just made a major announcement from Tokyo. They've completed development of a token issuance platform built on the XRP Ledger, and they've registered as a licensed prepaid payment instrument issuer under Japan's Payment Services Act. What does that mean? Businesses in Japan can now issue regulated digital tokens on XRPL, connected via API to existing apps and websites. Users hold and use digital assets without even knowing they're on a blockchain. This is real-world adoption. Licensed, regulated, live. Built on the XRP Ledger.
Watch the announcement. Licensed, regulated, live. Built on the XRP Ledger. 3 words that represent years of infrastructure work now crossing the threshold from development into production. And Japan is not an isolated case. It is a template. Here is what these 2 clips tell you when you place them side by side. In Paris, Garlinghouse described a financial system that was too slow, too expensive, and too structurally rigid to survive the next decade of competition. He described Ripple's mission as helping financial institutions navigate that transition and raised the question of whether SWIFT could be a partner in that journey. In Tokyo, SBI Ripple Asia answered a different version of that same question, not with a panel discussion, with a licensed product registered under national financial law, processing real transactions for real businesses on the XRP Ledger right now. The gap between those 2 moments, Paris and Tokyo, is the gap between a vision being articulated and infrastructure being deployed. The honest risk in this story is adoption velocity. Japan's regulatory environment is uniquely favorable to this kind of licensed blockchain infrastructure. Replicating that model across the EU, the United States, or emerging markets in Africa and Southeast Asia requires navigating entirely different legal frameworks. And that takes time that markets are often unwilling to wait for. But the direction of travel is no longer speculative. It is documented, licensed, and operational. The question is no longer whether XRP infrastructure works. The question is how fast the rest of the world's regulatory frameworks move to accommodate it. Now that you have the full picture, from the Paris FinTech Forum to the Tokyo announcement, the next video covers what the Clarity Act passing in the US Senate would specifically mean for XRP's institutional inflow projections and which price levels analysts are watching as that decision approaches. Subscribe so that one reaches your feed the moment it drops. I will see you there.